In this video, we're going to see how we can use different tools in Cinema 4D, which will help us to work in a more precise way and also to manage better our scene. Now, this was our previous lesson, but I also want to open up another recent file, which will be the lesson 4. So in here, we worked with 2D shapes and CAD drawings, vector graphics, and in the other lesson here with 3D objects. Now I want to create a new file, so I will go to File, a new project, and call this, save this as lesson 6. And I want to show you two ways that you can assemble your scene or your project here in Cinema 4D. So the first way, you can select, for example, some of these objects and then bring them inside the other scene. So I can go here to the selection and use the rectangle selection, for example, and I will select this one here and also this one here. So now to add to the selection, hold the Shift key, and if you want instead to subtract from the selection, hold the Control key. So I don't want every shape here, I just want to hold Control and select others that I don't want. So for example, that one there or so. Okay. Now I want to export this in the other scene. So how can I do that? Again, I have many options. For example, I can type Ctrl C on my keyboard, or I can hit Ctrl X, and these are now cuts, and I can paste them right here by doing Ctrl V. So it's really easy. You can just get things from other scenes and bring it into a new scene. So you can use also the asset browser, as we saw, to assemble different scenes really easy. And also I want part of this scene here, so I can select again some of these with the selection. Okay, maybe just this one here. Go to File and go to the Save Selected Objects As, and I can save these as a new Cinema 4D file. So let's call this Cinema 4D Objects, save it, and now I can go back to my lesson 6 and import this or merge with the rest of the scene, and you can bring in basically any Cinema 4D file. So let me see this in a list view so that I can find, there you go, that's my Cinema 4D objects, but I also can bring in all the other Cinema 4D files, and we saw we can also import from other software, and there you go. So I have already imported the models that I want. Now usually when you start to assemble really complex scene, you will have troubles by managing everything. So we saw that we can create groups. So for example, here I have a group that I called player, in which I have those 3 assets right there. And let's call this also this 4. I want to select this 4 from here or from the object panel, and I want to create a group. Now the group is the first managing tool. You can then keep things together. You can move them, rotate them, and work with them. So right click and go to create a group or group objects, or Alt G with the keyboard, and that's another group right here. Okay, now when you use groups, you can actually see the group, which is a null object. You can directly work on that null object. Now if you select this option here, you can work with the axis, so you can change the position of the axis. For example, I can place here the axis instead of the middle. So always remember that you have different modes or different types of selection, what you are selecting and what you want to edit usually you are here in the model mode or object mode. Now this is important also when you need to use the snap, and we will see that later on. Now the other managing tool, it's the layers or layer panel. Now here you can create new layers. So I can create new layer, call it, for example, logos, and here I want to place anything that is gonna be maybe a logo later, which could be all the objects that I have inside this null. So after I have created the layer, I can click on this little icon and I say add to layer logos. Now if I expand this, these are the children of this null object. So you can see that these are all the logos, but only the null object is in the correct layer. Now if I want to bring in all the other in the same layer, I will select them and right click and say add to layer logos. This is another way you can do that. Now let's create also another one, and this time I want to select this shape here, which is gonna be a smartphone in 3D later on. So I'm gonna right click and say add to new layer. So I can create a layer like this right away and add that shape. I'm gonna call this smartphone. Okay, and now I will continue to create other layers. For example, these two, right click. So you have many different ways you can assign objects to layers and create new layers. You can also switch something off already by using the second column here. Now I will explain to you all the columns, but this one here is similar to the little circles that you find here, or the X, which is gonna deactivate those objects. Now again, these are kind of overlapping, these shapes, so I'm gonna select them holding the shift key right there, and then I want to move them into another layer, which I will call profile. Right click, add to new layer, and this is gonna be profiles or sections. Okay, and then I want to hide those again, and also the others. Okay, you can see I have created more layers, and you can also then change object from a layer to layer. You can remove an object from a layer, so you can do all these operations. Now once you have organized everything here, now everything will be easier, because for example, if I want to work only with architecture, I can open this one here. You can also click and hold the left key and drag it if you want to change that particular visibility on all the other layers. Okay, so I can decide what to see and what not to see. Also, I can use this one here, which is a solo. So in this case, I want to see only the smartphone, I can solo that object. You can usually do that also with this icon right here. So basically you can do the same thing in many different ways if you want. Now the other one here is for the